Welcome in. Today, I wanted to discuss 8 tips to help you save money on your rent. So what's one way that you can save money on your rent? I've asked real estate agents and business leaders this question and asked them for their best advice. From paying annually instead of monthly to choosing a location outside the city, there are several tips here that may help you find the best ways to save money on your rent. Now let's get down and dirty into these 8 tips to help you start saving. Tate Meager from Meager Law Office says pay annually instead of monthly. Tate says that if you know that you'll be occupying for a considerable amount of time and you have the funds to do so, see if your landlord will cut you a discount if you pay your rent for the entire year. Tate was recently able to save money for his small business by paying rent on an annual basis. He proposed this idea to his landlord and the landlord agreed to cut him a discount. It ended up saving his business hundreds of dollars. Next, you want to make money back by renting when you're away. From Lisa Odenwiller at Chroma Wellness. Lisa says, rent out your place when you're gone. She says that if you have travel that you have planned, you can make some money to put towards your rent by doing a temporary rental. While many listings on sites like Airbnb do require that, it may need to be a full-time rental, she said it's not a requirement always. You can still list yours as available only on the dates that you'll be gone. Lisa says that this idea is not likely to cover your rent in full, but unless you're a frequent traveler, it can help you defray some rent costs. Next, you want to rent out your garage for storage. This is from JPAC at JPAC MD Medical. Jay says that if you have extra space in your garage, offer to rent it out on websites like Spacer.com and Neighbor.com. Jay says that it's a great way for you to subsidize your rent without having to take on the dreaded roommate. At the same time, it also helps the community members save money on expensive storage units, and you have the extra space. Then parlay excellent tenant behavior into rent reductions from Karen Condor at expertinsurancereviews.com. Karen says that raising the bar on being a model tenant can lower your rent. Bad tenants are such emotional and financial nightmares for landlords, and a landlord may be amenable to rent-related perks to keep an excellent tenant like yourself. She says that when her husband and her rented an old house in the Boston area from an elderly gentleman, they offered to take care of the substantial lawn and minor issues for a $100 rent reduction. After both parties lived up to the deal for several years, Karen says that her and her husband were laid off. What they did was they asked their landlord to temporarily reduce the rent so they could stay. And since they were such great tenants, the landlord agreed and they were able to stay where they were living. Next, you want to arrange to make a refundable pet deposit from Carly Hill at virtualholidayparty.com. So Carly says that pet owners occasionally have to pay rent for the privilege of cohabitating with their furry friends. So rather than pay a non-refundable fee for your dog or cat, if you have a landlord rather than a property company, Carly says that you may be able to negotiate a pet deposit instead. She says that if you can agree to pay a certain amount up front, and then as long as your little buddy doesn't wreck the place, you can get the money back when you move out. If you do go this route, she does say that then be sure to document the apartment's condition before and after your pet settles, just in case your landlord is not as honest as they appear to be. Then you want to rent closer to your work or school to save on commuting costs. This is from Rachel Reed at Subtle Beauty. Thanks, Rachel. So Rachel says, calculate your commuting expenses as part of your overall rent costs. Conventional wisdom tells us that, you want to pick a less expensive neighborhood when you're looking to save some money. However, Rachel says that if you have to commute to work or school regularly, that cost should be part of your calculations. A higher monthly rent in an area that's closer to where you need to be may work out to lower expenses once you factor in gas prices or public transit. Lower rent is a good thing. However, if it forces you to spend more in other areas of your budget, it may not be a good idea. Next, you want to know the market and negotiate appropriately. From Johan Haji of Upper Key. So Johan says that one way to save on rent is by knowing the market where you are renting. By gaining this good knowledge of the area and knowing what kind of demand exists, you may be able to negotiate a rate with your landlord. He says that if this is especially true when you agree to a longer lease than normal. Offering a lower rate for rent, but for a longer term, can put the landlord in a comfortable position knowing their rent will be guaranteed for a longer period. Johan says another option will be to pay several months up front, giving them more cash flow immediately and peace of mind knowing that the following months are already paid for by you. Finally, you want to choose a location outside the city. From Mike Stuzzi at Online Entrepreneur. Mike says that no one has to mention that living in the city is more expensive than living outside of it. Mike says that you can save money on rent by choosing a location that's out of the city but not far from your workplace or school. Find a more affordable housing option there while paying attention to transportation costs and also making sure you're spending less than you would in the city even after adding in the transport costs. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. And if you need more tips, reach out to me at harriswealthcoach.com or on social media at harriscashcoach. Thanks for joining me.